Welcome back to the Athlete's Edge podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about misappropriated load. I heard Darren Burgess and Jason Webber speaking about it the other day, and I thought it's probably a good topic to cover. So, how do you explain to athletes that the body sees all stresses as the same and not just the stress from structured training?
It's a good question. So your body doesn't care what you call it. Stress is stress. So whether that's gym work, school sport, light run, swim, it just knows load, and that's load on, endocrine system, nervous system, your muscular system, your cardiovascular system, respiratory system. So whether that's a flush run, a game of basketball, it all still counts. So even studying late, working a job, poor sleep, that all adds up to stress. I think athletes will think recovery means doing something easy, but that doesn't always mean it's restorative. So we're looking at how do we post-stress get the body back to baseline and ideally above, so that we're getting better from what we're doing, not just going downhill and getting worse. If you never let your system switch off, you're not recovering, you're just going to keep building fatigue on top of more fatigue. And eventually, it's going to show up in your performance or lack of performance. So knowing what gives you energy and then what can take energy away is, I think, a big skill that everyone needs, not just athletes. How you handle stress and how you perform at your best depends on your ability to handle that.
And so what kind of signs do you typically see when an athlete's sort of total load and total stress is too high?
Well, you don't need to be injured to be overloaded. So I think that's a common myth. You'll start seeing flat performances. So things, sprints, jumps, your lifts will feel a bit more sluggish. Your fresh days get less and less. So you're just getting that constant fatigue kind of state, constantly sore, tired. You're going to struggle with motivation as a result. You can start to feel run down and even get sick a bit easier. So colds and flus start to pop up a bit more frequently. Having said that, your outputs might stay the same, but you have to try twice as hard to get it, which ironically just creates more fatigue. That motivation, that desire to keep working hard then gets harder again. We can put it down to mental weakness, but it's really a physical overload and a poor load management issue. So they're trying hard, but they're not adapting. You can't fill a cup that's already full, and that's when the fatigue wins.
So what separates the athletes who consistently improve from those who constantly get banged up or tired or overloaded?
I think the best don't train just harder, they train smarter as well. So they know when to push and when to pull back, which I think is a big skill. Off the back of that, they plan their week really well with intention, not emotion. So it's not doing things because they feel like it. They're doing things because they know they have to, or not doing things because they know they have to. In that plan, they're treating their recovery just like their training. So it's put in the program so they know where it fits and why. The best are very good at chasing quality, not quantity. So I guess they make sessions count a lot better. They're not just doing it and ticking them off and just doing more of things that aren't really helping them. They're really consistent because they understand that consistency protects them, but it also builds rhythm, which allows you to be more consistent, which protects you even more. So ironically, that in itself is a big skill that really helps them. Within their schedule, because they're planning, they have high days, but then they're low days, which is where their other stuff can fit in around that. So they can have a bit of an outlet. They can have recovery and skill sessions and stuff in and around it. So then overall, they're just better at managing their stress. As a result, they stay healthy longer. So then they can keep, again, being consistent. Because for me, it's effort, but effort multiplied by consistency is what gives them the results. And if you're not being smart with your training, it's impossible to be consistent.
And so can you share an example of an athlete who you might have coached in all your years of coaching, who's sort of done all the right things, your speed sessions, gym sessions, all the things that we value, but structured their week either wrong or fell into the trap of misappropriated load where they've taken on some new stimulus that probably doesn't contribute towards the goal?
Yeah, there's, without thinking of any like specific person, I can think of probably two groups of people. The first is that group of people that can't say no. So what I mean by that is they're the ones that, particularly in key training windows and key times of the year, they're doing extra school sport, or they decided to start playing golf more frequently with their mates, or, you know, they pack up and go on a holiday during a really important time of the year or an important training block. It's not that these things are bad, but they just, in my opinion, could be better planned based on maybe less emotion or that FOMO of, you know, the fear of missing out, and getting over that. Then there's the person which kind of fits into that chronic rehabber, the person that's sort of on and off a fair bit, the one who drops things like the gym or the speed work when life maybe gets too busy or they feel a bit sore or run down. Then they'll try and pick everything back up on the other side of that. So as a result, they kind of constantly in this state of deload, feel a bit better, start back up, but jump back into too much, gets really sore again. So they think, oh crap, I've got to stop. So then they stop. So they're always doing these big waves of highs and lows. It's the reason why they get sore and fatigued, ironically, because they're not consistent. I've always found the best time to train is when you are busy, because if you can do it then, you can do it when you're less busy, and then in those times you can really get after it. So it becomes a great time to go. You've been consistent through hard times. As a result, we're talking about stress, everything else drops away a little bit. So now you're like, bang, more energy, more motivation, more drive, and then you can really get after it. And that's when those, you know, the results from all the consistent work you have been doing really show up.
And so for an athlete, how should they structure their week so they get enough stimulus and the right stimulus without burning out?
Well, so I really like the high-low structure, and in that, so 2 high days done really well will beat 5 random workouts, random days. So you really want to build a rhythm. To me, so high, low, high, low, high, low, off, as an example for our top athletes. So it allows you to stack high intensity work together in the same day. So it often means a morning and an afternoon session. So for example, maybe speed in the morning and a gym session in the afternoon. You follow that with your genuine low days. So that might be skills, mobility, some, you know, light running, that stuff on your low days. Even certain conditioning can either be high or low. The low days gives you a chance the system to wash out a bit of that fatigue, so then your high days can be really good quality and your low days give you a chance to recover. Somewhere on that weekend usually will be an off day where you can completely reset, turn the switch off. So it's not about doing more, it's about making the right sessions count. And if you spread your sessions across every day, and this is like, well, I'm going to do footy Tuesday, so I'll do gym Wednesday. The problem with that is now you're going to have load, moderate to high load every day. So again, we're talking about the body only knows load as load. So if you're not compacting it here and then giving yourself a full day's of low intensity work where you can actually have it off, then the body doesn't get that chance to recover. And then what happens is, like we're talking about, you start to see that your effort will drop, you know, fatigue builds, and then, you know, all this training you're doing is not getting you anywhere.
And so I know we've kind of talked about it a fair bit in the past, but what's one myth about recovery or extra sessions you wish every athlete would stop believing?
More doesn't make you better. Better timing does. So I think athletes think that just doing more, or the more they do, the faster they'll improve. But basic laws of physiology, the body doesn't just reward effort, it rewards the adaptation. So it's the training doesn't get you better, it's how you recover from that training and that response to that training. So yes, there's a bit of a dose response early on, that's pretty low. The more highly trained you are, the more dose you need. But it's how you adapt, how you give yourself time to adapt, the way in which you structure your training and all those sort of things in and around that is what really matters. And that's what we mean by timing. So it's matching, you know, recovery and rest in and around things like intensity and volume with our training, but how we get that right is what essentially will give athletes the best result. And every athlete's different, so they've got to start to understand these things. The analogy I really like is training is like music. So it's the space between the notes that makes music different, makes it really good. So it's not just one continuous note, it's how you put those notes together, how you create the spaces in between, that essentially makes a song.
And so to wrap things up for this episode, what's probably a main takeaway or two that you want athletes and parents to sort of walk away with from this episode?
Well, hopefully people that are listening to this are probably pretty driven. So when it comes to things like your extras, always ask yourself, is this helping me or is it burning me out? So what's the purpose? Why am I doing what I'm doing? If you can't answer that, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. And whether that's training, recovery, or an exercise outside of your sport, whether that's learning a musical instrument, you don't get better from the session itself, you get better from how you recover from it. So I think to know where it fits and why you're doing it is really important. That allows you to have a better structure, it allows you to buy into it, which will mean you work harder, you're going to work smarter, and I think just being clear on, which I'm not being very clear right now, just being very clear on why you're doing something. Whereas we're in the gym, we're asking, what's your goal in the gym? Don't know. It's like, well, it's almost, what are you doing here? Like, if you can't answer, and that's the gym, let alone all these other things people are doing and recovery plans and this stuff. So the best athletes we've come across are so clear on what they've got to do, why they do it, and that doesn't matter if you're 25 or if you're 12. We see that consistently across the board. So understanding why you're doing things, how it helps you, where it fits into your schedule, that would be the biggest takeaway. That even if all you do from this is you go away and you start to question it and go, okay, I need to understand it. Start asking us better questions because you're trying to learn from it and know where things fit.